I got another question for you, Rabbi, as well.
Yeah.
Is okay for another one? Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So, as far as the law, as far as listening to the judges at that time, slash, I don't know, rabbis, is that, am I inserting something here that shouldn't be there? What are we? Are we only supposed to be following? Like we say, we have the Mishnah, right? The Mishnah Torah, Rambam did.
Uh,
Now, as far as like listening to the rabbis in this 21st century that we're in today, if they tell you something as far as like this is the way that you should be doing it, and the Torah gives me authority to do this, is that correct or is that incorrect for the
no,
rabbis to
that's
say that?
incorrect. It says the judges of those days. And
Right.
in the same line, it
Okay.
says that they will
That's the
judge.
judges back 2,000 years ago. Yeah.
Right. But it's attached to the
Right.
statement that says that they will judge from the place that I will choose.
Okay. So the temple.
Correct. That's Jerusalem. Although every
Yeah.
tribe in every city pretty much had a small Sanhedrin, they were
Yeah.
all subject to the rulings of the great Sanhedrin, of the Beit Din HaGadol, which were located in the Lishkat HaGazit, in the room of hewn stones on the top of the Temple Mount. So it's not rabbis of today.
There's no ruling in the Talmud to tell us that we have to listen to the rabbis like who have now because we have no temple, no
Not at
Sanhedrin.
all. Not at all.
Right.
And it's not even like that in Shulchan Aruch, or for sure it's not like that in Mishneh Torah.
Okay.
They make a distinction between people who had smicha, basically
Yeah.
ordination going all the way back from Moses, to rabbis nowadays. It says that not rabbis, it doesn't mention the notion of rabbis, but teachers and scholars nowadays.
Sure.
The notion of rabbi nowadays doesn't really exist. And since that word has arisen, it's only confused people because I don't think we ever really should have used that as a title. The proper word is shofet, judge. That's what the Torah endorses. The title Rabban or Rav, it was a nice title to have, but it was judge. They were judges. That's what made them special. Now, not everyone who had smicha was a judge. And technically, not everyone who sat in the Sanhedrin had smicha. But for them to make a ruling, there had to be at least one person with smicha on the Sanhedrin.
Yeah.
But nowadays, there is no
Yeah.
more smicha because it was lost in around the end of the 3rd century of the Common Era. And the only reason we call people rabbi nowadays is because in 1538, in Svat, there was a rabbi named Yaakov Beirav, the Mari Beirav, that according to an opinion of the Rambam writes in his Parashat Mishnayot, also in Mishneh Torah, on how he thinks that you could recreate smicha. Now, nowhere in halakha does it tell you how to recreate it. So it's technically lost forever. But the Rambam said that it seems to me that if you would get the greatest chachamim of Eretz Yisrael to agree on giving smicha to one person, then in turn he could give smicha to others, and then you could start the whole Sanhedrin again. So this guy in Svat tried to do that. The problem is that he didn't get the endorsement of all the rabbis or leaders of the time for it to really take off. But since then, since basically 1538 of the Common Era, they resurrected the title rabbi, but it's completely ceremonial. It means nothing. The Rambam was never called rabbi. Rashi was never called rabbi. But the Arizal and all these things, now somebody, I don't know what his name is, some idiot online that was attacking me because I made this statement probably like 5 years ago. And he's like, oh, well, his name is the Rambam. What does Rambam mean? It means Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. Like, all these little acronyms are probably less than 200 years old. People in the Rambam's time didn't call him the Rambam. People in Rashi's time didn't call him Rashi. So this is something that they invented around maybe 200, maybe 300 years ago. Like calling everyone who existed rabbi. They were never called rabbi. As a matter of fact, even in the Yemenite community, which is a community that was so detached from the rest of the Jewish world and thus were able to preserve their ancient customs, they never had the title rabbi. They'll call him Mori, my teacher, as a descriptive term, chacham. But this notion of rabbi, now the average rabbi doesn't know this nowadays. The average rabbi probably thinks he has, smicha going straight back to Moses, and he probably thinks that he could put you to death, just because there's a lot of ignorance in the Jewish world. But anyone who studies Shulchan Aruch or Mishneh Torah, Hilchot Sanhedrin, it makes a huge distinction between what's called like mumchim today, experts today, because you could be an expert in the law and not technically be a judge or a rabbi, right? But they're able to judge on mundane matters. In other words, like they're able to perform conversions. They could write a get on common occurrences, yeah, but they can't judge on monetary matters. In other words, they could only oversee laws that Torah itself tells you to do, but they can't actually make judgments and force you to do something And if you don't do it, like, you'll give you lashes or put you to death or put you in cherem. Well, cherem, you don't need sbicha to put someone in cherem. But the question is, who's going to follow it?
But this is what Maimonides did. I guess this is what Maimonides did in his Mishnah Torah, as he, like you say, he codified it so any layperson can be their own teacher, with the Mishnah
Correct.
Torah.
Back then, people needed knowledgeable people to bring down what the halakha was for any event or any issue. It's because there's so many midrashim and agadot in the Talmud, it's hard to know which way the halakha goes. Sometimes it's ambiguous. So people like the Rambam had their own Masorah on which way the halakha was understood. Technically, if we were all on a very high level, we should be able to extract halachot from the Mishnah, not Mishneh Torah, but from the Mishnah itself. However, we have Gemara, which is the commentary, the students of the Tanaim, which are the ones who appear in the Mishnah, telling us what the Tanaim actually meant and which way the halakha could go. But even their statements are very ambiguous. And then you had the age of codifications. I think the big major codification was the Rif. However, the Rif only codified Talmud Bavli. He never codified Talmud Yerushalmi or all the Toseftot. The Rambam was the first and the last to ever codify all of Jewish law, which is both Talmuds, Talmud Bavli, Talmud Yerushalmi, the Mechilta, the Sefri, the Sefra, and the Toseftot. And that's it. Even Shulchan Aruch is incomplete. For some reason, after the Rambam, they had to bring in other compilations to introduce Kabbalistic thought, because the Rambam existed before the Zohar was written. Now, the Zohar claims to be written by the Rashbi, by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but it was only found in 1270 of the Common Era. The Rambam was dead already. So this is why you don't have Kabbalah in our halakha. But if you study Shulchan Aruch, there's Kabbalah in there. It actually says that you could paskin by the Zohar as long as it doesn't contradict Talmud Bavli. And they do it. Then people, on top of that, then you have Shulchan Aruch Harav, which is the Chabad Shulchan Aruch, and then you have Kitzer Shulchan Aruch, and then you have Mishnah Berurah, and they just keep on adding more and more, weird minhagim. And this is why Judaism nowadays doesn't really resemble necessarily the Judaism of the Rambam's time.
Sweet, thanks.